games that somebody told me about. Of course, like we mentioned before, I didn't believe them when they told me because it's just like that same thing. We already went over it. We had more of the internet, like I said, with IGN now, the internet was becoming a thing. IGN was showing stuff, and then you had Cheat CC, you had the Capcom.com website and stuff like that. These things were starting to emerge, and they were around, and we were getting access to the internet at this point at my school. And I was learning to move it, to navigate it a little bit. But still, like, I had no idea it was coming out, I wasn't really checking for it like that. I was reading game magazines, few and far between when I could, because my mom would not buy that shit. Like, I had to, like, read my cousin's books or just go to the drugstore. And mom was like, we got to go to the store. And it's like, well, can I go look at the magazines? And, yeah, go look at the magazines. So, you go look at the magazines, and you have a pen with you all the time just in case, because I used to carry a pen at the time, not to get the girls' numbers, but so I can get the codes and the damn combos and shit from the game, And that's what I was doing. I would eventually learn the powers of the pen trying to get a girl's number, but that was much later on. So, yeah. So, I still didn't see anything about it. So, it was just like I was in Main Street Arcade. I think my dad or somebody took me like usual. He's like, yeah, man, you got to see the X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Because somehow he would see what was out because he would frequent the arcades. I always thought that was really cool that he would just, yeah, man, this game is out. Like, how do you know? So he used to actively follow it. Him and my Aunt Angel, they used to follow games. So, Ashe, Aunt Angel. I always loved playing games with her and stuff. At this time, I was kind of getting into anime because, like, Sailor Moon had been out for maybe, like, a year, but maybe a little bit longer. I mean, they showed, like, an episode a while back. Then they kind of, like, didn't show anything else, and they came back, like, maybe a year later in 95, and, they was running that, and I really got invested in Sailor Moon, just kind of being on a half day, and like, oh, shit, 2:30, because you're not home at 2:30, so on a half day, you at home at 2:30, I remember it was just, once again, Michael Jackson, the Rock With You video had came on, I had never seen it until that point, and then freaking Sailor Moon, I was like, yo, what is this Sailor Moon stuff? But kind of really getting interested in the anime, like, oh, that's what this is. I've seen the aesthetic, but I didn't really quite know. And then, my dad, having showed me, like, and probably shouldn't have showed me Akira, which was kind of wild. And there was some other shit used to come on Sci-Fi. Anime was kind of starting to take hold. So about 96, Dragon Ball Z, I believe, was out coming on Sundays. And you kind of had to, they always came on at odd times. So you had to catch it, and you would make sure that you could catch it. So it's just like, I'm kind of moving towards Dragon Ball Z now, Sailor Moon and whatever else was out at the time. So it's just like, X-Men, I still like it, but I ain't checking for them like that. The show was done. I might go back and read a comic here and there, but I know I was getting into Street Fighter Alpha, and that's what they decided to do, the prequels to Street Fighter 2, and they made the style more anime this time in this one. So my interest was in Street Fighter Alpha, so I was playing that heavily, and I always tie that into that time when, I was like, oh, this is anime. I like this. I want more of this. Yeah, this is a Japanese thing, or whatever. This ain't like, the other cartoons that I see. So I guess, Capcom, like, we still got the license. I don't know how long they had the license for, but they said we're going to throw the X-Men in there. So I guess it gave them another sense of relevance, and I guess it was good for Marvel at the time because they was kind of going bankrupt. So that kind of, that kind of kept Marvel alive a little bit. Capcom kind of putting those games out, keeping them in the eyes of, the public, those characters and stuff like that. So, I mean, why not X-Men for Street Fighter? I mean, it wasn't hurting nobody, and then it's just like, it was just something that you would never think about. And it would seem like it was kind of late, but it was right on time because it had a huge arcade following. I've seen a lot of people at the arcade playing high-level games and stuff like that. And it was one of the first games that I seen, fighting games, where you could switch out the characters. So you could be fighting one guy, you switch to your next guy. You could mix and match whoever you wanted to fight with. You could do, like, super combos in tandem. You can counter characters' moves by tagging in somebody else at a specific time. It was high-paced. A lot of frantic things happening on the screen. Sometimes you got 4 characters on the screen at once, and at the time, you weren't really seeing anything. So it was definitely a step up from what we had seen, and it added some new levels to, the system and everything. I was looking at a little bit of the history on the game. Here it says, according to Wikipedia, the initial release of X-Men vs. Street Fighter was September 6, 1996. So I remember that summer, man, prior to 6th grade, you know, like going into 6th grade, I played a lot of Alpha 2. That was like, I think that game had come out around that time, you know, so it was a lot of Alpha 2 being played like competitively in the arcade, like when, you know, my dad would take me up to the Butterfly, which is another arcade that we used to frequent. The big arcade actually had pool tables and stuff like that, and you ain't had no chaperone with you at a certain time. You had to get out, you know, because they be smoking in there and shit. But it's like I never really paid too much attention because it was just like the allure of being in an arcade, you know, with all these, you know, grown-ups and shit, and seeing them play at such a high level that you don't even want to play some of the games. But yeah, I remember like that summer leading into 6th grade, that was like Alpha 2 was like ruling the arcades. So that made sense for them to kind of roll off into X-Men vs. Street Fighter. It made for some interesting gameplay that would the likes that we would have not seen, and it laid the framework once again for all those versus games following. So if you ever watch Evo, you know, some of those wild tournaments, you know, this is kind of the beginning of those tag games. And I think even like after this Tekken Tag tournament came out, maybe a year or two later, or maybe like 3 or 4 years later, I'm not sure, but it was just like Namco was like, yo, that shit works, let's do it. So even Tekken, I think, followed suit after a while to bring a tag game because of X-Men vs. Street Fighter. X-Men vs. Street Fighter would prove as one of the first successful tag team fighting games that we would see during that time. So, you know, I think that Tekken kind of owes some props to X-Men vs. Street Fighter for doing so. Now, I forgot where I was going with this shit, and I'm going to have to edit this part out. But be that as it may, the characters now on this roster align more with the animated series as opposed to the Children of the Atom, which is weird because by the time this came out, like, X-Men, the animated series, was, like, long gone, you know? I mean, you talked about it as if it was something that was, like, 10 years ago because you were a kid, and things that are 2 years may seem like 10 years ago. So by this time, like, you know, we already talked about how anime was kind of becoming a thing. It was just like, you know, Dragon Ball Z was out, and it was going into its next season, you know, of the Namek saga, but it changed channels, and then, you know, Sailor Moon and all this stuff. So it was just like nobody was thinking about X-Men at this time. So it seemed like Capcom gave them an extra, you know, life, if you will, like kind of licensing it. And like I said before, Marvel was bankrupt at this time, so Capcom was actually like having them niggas on life support with what they were doing. But yeah, the roster was more in line this time because the X-Men side consisted of Sabretooth, Juggernaut, Rogue, Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine, and Gambit. Am I missing anybody?
Colossus was on Children of the Atom, but not X-Men.
Yeah, he was on Children of the Atom, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know how it happened, but yes, ladies and gentlemen, Dr.Funk has magically appeared.
What up, though?
That's right. See, in podcast world, anything is possible. But yeah, so yeah, that was that roster, and then I believe the Street Fighter side was Ryu, Ken, Bison, Zangief, Chun-Li, Charlie, and Delsum. Can't forget about Delsum, and then hidden character Akuma. So he wasn't really that hidden. I don't think he had to do that much to get him. All he did was like go up right at the top.
I thought he was already. I could be wrong. I thought he was like already available, but
he was. But I think you just had to like go to the top of the character select screen and then just press up or something, and then you could play him.
Okay.
It wasn't. I don't think it was like no like, you know, super duper
code or nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Because he was a hidden character in
Children of Atom. Right? Yeah. We talked about that, and I also talked about like how I didn't know that until like I got to college when I was watching combo videos.
Oh yeah, he was busted as all the hell on that game.
Yeah, I didn't even know that he was in Super Street Fighter 2. My first time seeing him was in Alpha. Yeah.
Oh man, I remember seeing him in magazines and stuff and looking at his move list and just being, it was just like
he looks like Ken and Ryu, so he must be their master. And they was like, well, yeah, his moveset mimics Ken, a combination of both Ken and Ryu.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, he can throw out a red fireball like Ryu could. Remember, the red fireball was a new move in the Super Street Fighter 2 game. And I never did get a confirmation on the Dragon Punch. I'm like, dang, he can do a flaming Dragon Punch too?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the shit, man. That was like my favorite. That's probably like my favorite Street Fighter move of all time. Flaming Dragon Punch.
Yeah, it is cold.
But, yeah, and then seeing him at the arcade, I actually saw someone fight him, and they had Blanca, and they was kind of going head up. Well, he was kind of like dodging it for his life or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But Akuma, I was like, dang, he is like super powered. Like, how can you beat him?
Right.
Because, you know, he was the first character to throw air fireballs. Heck, he might be the first character to throw air fireballs in a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
And unless, when did Mortal Kombat 2 come out?
That joint, it was 94, 93.
So Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Mortal Kombat 2 was out around the same time then, right?
I'm assuming.
I think Super Street Fighter 2 came out in 93. But I just remember he was the first character I saw do an air fireball, and then I remember other characters doing air fireballs in other games, like in the Art of Fighting series and Mortal Kombat. But the point is, we're talking about the music of the games, right?
Yeah. I'm just gonna do some more stuff about just kind of like the gameplay a little bit.
Okay.
Well, not just the gameplay, but just just the good facts about it. But yeah, this joint, man, it was dope. And shit, I forgot where I was gonna go with it. But yeah, you know, Akuma, and even if like Akuma would have history with Wolverine, like when you play the subsequent games like Marvel Street Fighter and then so on. Yeah, so, and that was due to Children of Adam, you know, Akuma being a secret character, we already said that, so the standard reason why Wolverine would know him, like a lot of his early comic exploits would have Wolverine in Japan. So that makes sense that they would make a nod to that, you know, and that they would even have that type of continuity and even care enough to do it, you know, because they could have kind of just like, we don't care, we're just going to make it whatever. So that just goes to show, you know, the kind of work that they put into it, making a connectivity, making a bridge. And then Wolverine's old as fuck anyway, so, you know,
man, old as fuck is an understatement.
Right, you would have to believe that somehow he would pass Akuma's path or some shit, you know, because he's just that old. But yeah, man. So, just a little bit interesting things about the home version. The home version was released on Saturn and PS1. The Saturn version would not make it over here due to low popularity, you know, of Saturn in America, and that it would be released in Japan.
They shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, they did. And if you don't know about that, you could go look that up and find out about it. Read Console Wars is a good description about what happened. I mean, or you can just find on the internet. So it's many people who talked about how Sega, you know, fucked themselves with that. You know, that's not something that isn't well documented on many platforms. Right, the Saturn version was released November 27, 1997. That's my birthday right there, so that's pretty dope. And it came with a 4 megabyte RAM cartridge peripheral, which was packaged with the game in order to give an arcade perfect version of it, which is dope. You know, if anybody was gonna pull it off, it was Saturn, because they were the 2D system. PlayStation wasn't dealing with that. They was like, yo, we only care about 3D, and that's it. And you know, it makes you wonder why the hell Sega Saturn's Symphony at Night didn't turn out so well, but that's a story for another day. Moving on, you know, the PlayStation did have a version. PlayStation 1 did have a version, but there was some discrepancies about that. So on November 6, 1996, there was a conference that Capcom announced the home version of X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and they said it was going to be exclusive to Saturn, which would make sense because, you know, it could handle it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and this is coming from Wikipedia. And it was saying, facing ongoing accusations of favoritism towards the Saturn, Saturn, excuse me, due to the perceived superiority of the Saturn version of Street Fighter Alpha 2 over the PlayStation version, it's no lie, and the home version of Night Warriors, Darkstalker's Revenge being Saturn exclusive, Capcom rescinded the statement because, you know, it looked like they were showing favorites to Saturn. But it's just like, if your shit is 2D, it would only make sense if you wanted to be the best it could be, right? But, you know, a lot of people were playing PlayStation, so they was like releasing on PlayStation, which may or may not have been a good idea. So they released it on PlayStation. It was renamed X-Men vs. Street Fighter EX, and it wouldn't come out till 1998. So it's just like, man, I don't think anybody would probably give them the shit at that point. Like, I didn't know anybody who fucking had X-Men vs. Street Fighter on PlayStation. Did you?
I remember. I had it actually.
Oh, word.
Oh man, it was terrible.
It was terrible, and you know, due to the memory limitations, you could not switch out characters. Certain graphics were, you know, altered. Some of the gameplay was altered. Some of the animations were removed due to, you know, the amount of RAM that was used. And then, like, the thing that you really give a shit about, that I'm going to mention, you couldn't tag in the game. And, like, the only way you could was like something called crossover mode.
We wanted to switch, like, let's just say I had Ken and Cyclops.
Yeah.
You also had to pick Ken and Cyclops.
Yeah, the computer would pick them if you were playing the computer. And then, like, you would go through the whole game playing all the characters, and they would select your characters at that point for you. Like, after you pick the initial team, then they start picking your characters for you to be able to switch. And, you know, it was pretty wild that they would do that, but it was just like, hey, it is what it is. You played what you had, because I'm pretty sure, like, a lot of people didn't have Saturn. The reason why I know about it is because my cousin had Marvel vs. Street Fighter, and it had a similar thing on PS1, so yeah. Anyway, man, moving on from that, getting into the soundtrack, what's dope about Capcom is like they had a healthy amount of female composers, and the Versus games were composed by female composers, and two of them being Yuki Iwai and I believe Yuko Takahata. You know, some Capcom mainstays right there. Those are names that you would see coming throughout. And I believe Yuki Iwai was married to another composer by the name of Takayuki Iwai. It seems that the soundtrack would have to be toned down due to the demand of the memory and the graphics and everything, and having all those characters on the screen at once, super jumping, and, you know, the fast-paced action. That's going to take a toll on, you know, on the processor and the, you know, the RAM and all this stuff. So the music would have to take a back seat, you know, in order for, you know, optimal performance of the game as a whole, and that's going to take precedence because it's about the game at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And this is no slight to the composers at all. They are very well versed musicians, have great compositions and all that. And I'm pretty sure if you listen to some of their other work, you can hear some more complex things. But for the sake of the game, you know, they had to do what they had to do. And they made the best of it, you know what I'm saying? And there's some good stuff here. It just, you know, as far as, you know, just speaking technically, some of the stuff just isn't as complex as what you would hear in Children of the Atom. But it's still a good soundtrack. We selected 4 songs for the game that we thought were pretty good. Let's see, what did I have? I got here Cyclops theme.
I picked that one.
Yeah, that was Dr.Funk pick. Storm's theme, Rogue's theme, and Gambit. Now, mind you, none of the characters actually have legitimate stages onto themselves in this game, because there's like, you're switching out characters so frequently that it wouldn't make any sense to have a character specific stage. So they're all kind of neutral. So,
yeah, also that would probably take a lot of, you know, that'll probably mess up the game in the long run, right?
Yeah, because there's more levels, and yeah, you know,
more data for them to load.
Yeah. So, you know, they had like pretty like, you know, neutral standard level and stuff, like a mall, and they had like a cherry blossom garden with like a Buddha statue, and of course they had some of the ones from Children of the Atom, like the Blackbird one. That was a popular one. They used that one a lot. The Blackbird level. Yeah, I always like that level though. But anyway, so when one of your characters gets knocked out, another one has to come in and take over. The song switches.
Right, because each character had their own thing. They didn't have their own stage. I think it felt better because, you know, when you hear, like, you know Superman is coming because you hear his theme. You know? Right. So, you know, kind of like that. Why not give the characters their own thing to announce, you know, hey, you are playing with Gambit or Rogue or whatever.
And that,
I love it.
That kind of does, like, bring some excitement to it, to the point where it's almost like wrestling. Like how they used to come out and you just hear the theme like, oh shit.
Go.
Right. So it kind of get that level of excitement, you know. And that's what X-Men vs. Street Fighter was all about, you know. Giving you a level of excitement, having a good time, you know, seeing the guys at the arcade playing it and playing it at a fucking high level and just being excited. And that whole spirit would carry on to tournaments even now, like when you watch tournaments with Ultimate Marvel 3, you know what I'm saying? The spirit is still there, whereas they would say on Soul Calibur, the soul still burns. And we have this game to kind of thank for that, for laying the foundation, laying the groundwork. Even though, you know, X-Men wasn't even a thing then, it was like, kind of was off of that hype, off that wave. Not like we still didn't like it, but it's just like we was moving on to other things. You know, for them to still do that and to make something that was competent and kind of resuscitate X-Men a little bit, you know, I got to give props for that. That was a dope move. And it was still something exciting to see, even though we wasn't really fucking with X-Men like that, you know, at the time. You know what I'm saying? Not like excited like we were like at first, but it was something dope to see because it still was something that you never thought that you would see. And it was one of those things where you thought somebody was lying. Like, that shit ain't real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's funny that you said that because when I first heard about it, I thought, you know, someone was lying because the person who told me about the game was a well-known liar in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
So, I got suck at pictures.
The boy who cried will be.
Berserker Barrage!
Well, Dr.Funk, let me ask you, like, what is your history with the game? Like, when did you first?
Gross Bay. And that little shopping center, a long time ago, had a Perry Drugs. If you from Detroit, you know Perry
Drugs.
But it was like a thrift shop, and then there was a bunch of other little shops, and then, you know, someone decided to put an arcade in that shopping center. And like I played X-Men vs. Street Fighter there first. I played Killer Instinct 2 there first. And then of course I still went to Witches on 8 Mile out there, you know. I guess you could say, I can't say it's in East Point because it's still in Detroit, but if you go right behind the building, you'll be at East Point. But Wizards was the arcade. Wizards and the Butterfly were all the best players we had. Especially Wizards. But yeah, I remember going there and, you know, plugging 50 cents in and 25 cents to continue. And, you know, just going there and spending all my money on that, and everything else was abandoned. Like, I didn't care about Mortal Kombat 3. I didn't care about Mortal Kombat 2, Street Fighter Alpha 2, any of the S&K games. You know, that was it. Because I know you said Marvel was bankrupt, but I think that was the tail end of the cartoon.
Yep.
Where the animation started changing.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like, it wasn't at its peak anymore. It was on its way down. So,
I think by this time it was done. Because this would have been fall 96, I think it came out.
But I'm thinking of X-Men Children of Atom. Like, it was still popping.
Well, it was still, they had to be in the third season.
Right.
I think they were in the Phoenix, and I failed to mention that. I'm glad you said that. They had to be in this third season by the time Children of the Atom came out.
That was the Phoenix Saga, right?
Yeah.
So, but Everyone liked Children of the Atom because they still like that cartoon. The X-Men was still wildly popular, and then like Alpha 2 was like, what was that, Alpha 2 or was that first Alpha? Anyway, the Alpha series of Street Fighter was the shit. Like,
Yeah.
the first two were awesome. 3 was okay.
Okay, yeah.
If you watch from a competitive standpoint, you'd be like, wow, V is on the shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Capcom was on top of this game.
Yeah.
I think the only stinker laid out there was Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter, the movie, the game.
The game.
Street Fighter 3. But Capcom was on top of that game because they did more stuff than fighting games. I can't think of nothing off the top of my head that they released outside of fighting games, but their fighting games were booming. You know, everyone played Street Fighter. You know, you were a Street Fighter snob, and at that time, King of the Fighter, like the Fatal Furies, I think the real bout Fatal Fury was coming out around that time, and then you was probably up to like King of Fighters 96.
Yeah. 95 or 96.
95, 96.
It took them a minute to come out with the shit.
Right, so Street Fighter snobs, man. Capcom snob. That's what people played, so.
Yeah. But we're gonna go ahead. You know, we wanted to get Dr. Funk's, you know, his history with the game and stuff, because I'd be liking to hear, you know, him and DZ and Creeper talk about stuff. You know, they was a lot more, you know, knowledgeable about this shit than I was, because I was still kind of like a little bit younger, so it was just like, I was just happy to be playing the damn game. I probably didn't know as much. Just like, I'm just happy to play it. Get my ass kicked. You know what I mean? I'm just happy to be here, goddammit.
Right.
So I know they was a little bit more cognizant. So I'd be liking to get, you know, get their view on stuff. And, you know, it'd be interesting to hear their stories about things. They always got good stories. So definitely want to, you know, hear what the brother has to say. But now we're going to move in to the tracks. We're going to start with Cyclops. Then we're going to go into Storm. Then we're going to get that Rogue. And then that Gambit. God damn it, Royal Flush. It's too much. We're going to be back after the break.
Too sweet.
If you got what it takes, get ready to hear your boys talk about this shit from the Great Lakes. now it's time to talk some shit. Alright, that was a Dr. Funk pick. That was some dope shit. What you got to say about it?
That shit was dope, son. No, but it's my favorite theme in the game. It fits. His theme fits his character the best, you know. It screams leader, straight lace guy, ready to do whatever he needs to do to lead his team to victory. And that beginning, I like the beginning. It comes in hard, you know, this heroic, I'm the leader vibe, and then it levels off and it has some nice chords in the middle, and then it repeats. So, best thing, hate they got rid of it in the next couple versus games.
Yeah, man, it is a dope theme. I don't know why I didn't include it. I don't know what I was thinking. But, yeah, it has a dope intro, man. That mug comes in super hard, like Dr. Funk said. Like, you know, he just optic blasted his ass into the match or something. That's what it sounds like. And it does kind of follow the arc of a leader, in a sense. Because it's like, you know, at first it's like, yeah, I'm the guy. You know, I do what I'm told. I'm straight laced. I do the shit by the book. But then it just like, in the middle, it kind of seems like, I guess maybe the end part was like, dun, 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 whatever, however it goes. It sounds like he's having to make a tough decision, or the part of being a leader that's making tough decisions. So it kind of like, I guess, to me, reflects the different aspects of having to be a leader. So, you know, as Dr. Funk said, they hit it right on the head. And I don't know why they never put him back in a versus game until Marvel 2 anyway. But, you know, it is what it is. He should have been in there. He was a dope character. Actually, like, I preferred the game Cyclops more than I preferred the animated series Cyclops.
Right.
The game Cyclops didn't pull no punches, man. He was hard. You know, he did his thing. But next up, I think we had Rogue's theme, and I like that one a lot. What did you think of that?
It's forgettable. I didn't remember it till you played it for me just a few minutes ago. It's nothing to write home about, my opinion.
Word up. You heard it here first, folks, by Dr. Funk. And, okay, so I had a few things here. For Rogue, man, I think that this song, it starts with like a screeching guitar combo, you know, between it and the piano, and the synthetic sax kind of jumps in and just like, yo, this is my show, I got this. But the piano kind of, you know, the piano stays close, like, you know, I still want to give my 2 cents about things. And then finally, you know, it wrestles control of the conversation with a solo that's accompanied by some nice chords. And the sax returns for the end, you know, kind of like the voice of reason. Shout out to Zoe Williams, you know, doing his thing. But has a kind of, you know, once again, somber but dutiful vibe to it. You know, that I think suits Rogue well because she's a very somber, kind of tragic character. You know, she can fly, she has superhuman strength, which seems like that would be cool to be able to have. But her original mutant power is to absorb mutant powers, and how she obtains that power is by absorbing someone's powers and almost killing the woman. I think she put her in a coma. That was who you guys know. That was getting into Marvel, Carol Danvers.
That's your Miss Marvel.
And hopefully,
not mine.
If they do it right,
if we let them off the hook,
hopefully, if they do the Marvel movies right, and X-Men comes back to Marvel Universe, we could see that happen in the cinematic universe. That would be dope. But anyway, you know, so she absorbed mutant powers, and that's a tragic thing for her, because on one side, you know, it's a strong asset, because as we see, when they're fighting Juggernaut and people like that, when they can't physically do nothing to them, you know, usually they go like, okay, roll, go absorb the powers. You know, they need her, because sometimes you can't always get up on nobody and do stuff.
Right.
Sometimes you need Roll to do that. And like, it's the difference between her and whatever else. But on the flip side of it is that she takes on whoever she absorbs memories, and she also takes on their mannerisms, their characteristics, and sometimes she has to deal with their trauma as they're dealing with it. So if it's somebody who ain't necessarily dealt with what they got going on as far as their demons and stuff, it becomes a part of her and it stays with her. So there's a downside to that, and then also she can't touch anybody. So like she put her boyfriend in a coma and almost killed him in the animated series and stuff like that. Not sure if that's what happened in the comics, but you know she kind of has this thing with Gambit that can't really go through because she can't touch anybody. So we kind of see a will they, won't they all the time. But Gambit, you know, he hard headed as hell, so he keep messing with her, but you know she can't do nothing. So that kind of somber vibe, I believe, is part of that song. But at the same time, she wishes to get rid of those powers, but she's always reminded of the good that they do and why she needs to keep using them and that she needs to wield them responsibly. So I feel like this song kind of fits that vibe of, you know, her kind of being a tragic hero a little bit, you know. And the screeching guitar just in the beginning reminds me of her. I can just hear her voice going, "Get ready," you know, every time I hear it. So, you know, that's that. Yeah, I think we did Storm next. What you think about Storm, man?
Classic. Another unforgettable one in my opinion. Storm as a character is pretty cool, pretty dope. Fun to watch in tournaments, but stage thing, man, didn't care for it.
Yeah, this soundtrack was kind of a tough sell, man. You know, it has some good stuff, but it just like when you coming off of Children of the Atom, it's kind of hard to go up against, man. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they have to compare or anything like that, but it just like I prefer the Children of the Atom soundtrack. And these are some good things, and they're very accomplished compositions. We're not saying they're not, but you know, it just I don't know. But the gameplay was good, and that's like I said, that's what they were going for.
All that matters.
Storm thing starts off with a nice piano intro, you know, some kicking drums, stuff like that. Once again, that sax comes in to take the melody. Man, that's sex, man. You ain't play no games on this one. You like, yo, I'm gonna get all my screen time on this shit.
She's coming home with me.
Right. Hey, I was talking to them. But I'm not sure why they didn't repeat the first couple bars as a thing like they normally would. But, you know, it is what it is. I like it. You know, I think it's dope. The last section kind of got like a hip-hop vibe to it, you know, which is pretty nice. And, you know, like I said about Rogue's thing, it kind of has a sad vibe, but also a sense of duty. And, you know, it almost feels like it's evoking the feeling that Storm, you know, was once a goddess in Africa, but, right, you know, had given it up to fight for a place that don't really respect her and mistreats her despite her ability to probably wreck a whole tri-city, tri-county area because she controls weather. And, you know, kind of hits close to home when you're talking about black people. We're not going to go there, but, you know, it has that sense that she has to, you know, not be in a place where people, like, you know, respect her for what she can do, where she was once venerated and, you know, respected for you know, saving the crops and things like that. And having to come and take all this shit. So, yeah, it fits that vibe. Now on to the last one, Gambit Stage. What you think about Gambit Stage, man? I know, come on, man, you gotta like this one. No Gambit?
No Gambit.
You didn't like it?
Gambit, I like it better than the last two we talked about.
Yeah.
It's more memorable because I honestly I heard more Marvel vs. Capcom than Street Fighter versus Capcom.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was always someone's second player because the first player gets knocked out. He bounces along the screen.
That's right.
You couldn't hit him.
You're right about that. I'm saying you're absolutely right about that. Because it always did seem like that song would just come out of nowhere like, I'm at my last guy. Then you just hear, doo, doo. You're like, oh, Gambit's still here. Like, you think, man, this guy just killed my first player or whatever. You're like, damn, I'm kill my other player. Well, who do I got? Oh, Gambit's still here. Word. But for me, this is like my favorite track on the game. Because the song, it don't waste any time. It comes right in. Like, I don't think there really is an intro. It's just like, yo, this is the song. Like, strap in. Now, it don't really fit Gambit's character because Gambit's not loud and, you know, he's not a loud personality. I mean, he's a loud personality, but when you think about Gambit being a thief and him being as cool as he is, this shit don't fit him. It's too heroic for Gambit, you know. You always wonder what the hell Gambit doing. You're like, yo, is Gambit, you know,
He's just sitting in the cut and watching and see when
Right.
his opening can happen.
Is Gambit still in my hot pocket off the damn microwave when he know I was coming back to get it? You know, you never know if Gambit really with you or not. So I don't think that, you know, kind of fits his character, but whatever, you know. It comes right in with a punch and horn section, you know what I'm saying, that comes to the guitar. And, like, they did really good with this. It almost sounded like a marching band song, the way those chords are being played, like, by some trombones or something. You know, they're hitting in this. I think, like, the next section kind of calms stuff down with this, like, kind of keyboard and marimba type solo, you know. And CPS2 was always good for that marimba sound, or, like, the bells or whatever, to the point where, like, you hear any of those sounds, you automatically go back to that era. And for me, this is one of my favorite eras of Capcom. If not my favorite, would be the mid to late 90s Capcom. That's when they were at their peak, you know, and they could not really do too much wrong. I mean, you had Resident Evil and all these things coming out, and they were just hitting on all cylinders. But that's not about the music, so we're going to go back. But the trombone come back in, you know, they keep it going with that. And then the guitars return with the cosines and tangents. They kind of take us into the end with that steady percussion, you know, keeping it driving the whole way through. And that's Gambit's thing. And this is going on way longer than I thought it would, but it is what it is. We got to go because we got to handle business.
Right.
Tell your wife and your kids.
My kids.
We
my
did
wife.
what we had to. Don't quit. We about to rock with WMOF the bit. If you like this, let us know. We'll keep them coming. Now we got to hit the ground running because we got something else to do with the 4-man crew. Shout out to DZ and Creeper out there in Utah at the Heritage Classic.
Yep. Southern Heritage Class.
Hopefully TSU was smacking that ass, smacking that ass.
Stop it. Now the drumline made references.
I had to do it. But, yep.
Sure.
This is Spidey Rock, aka Rick Chan, aka Speedy Thrillin', and Dr.Funk in the building. We signing off.
Yo. Thanks for having me, brother.
No problem. Don't sweat the technique. You went in with the fresh geeks. Ronan recorded yours, bringing the funk and flavor to you and yours. Check that Instagram. Peace.
X.